Berry Parish Council meeting to order. The date is July 26, 2017. The time is 6 p.m. If you can stand for the prayer and pledge, Mr. Olivier.
Lord, we meet here today to conduct matters of business. Guide our decisions in unity as we meet here today. Guide our hearts in keeping our parish in mind. Let's all work together for a better Iberia parish. And Lord, protect our troops here and abroad. We pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Montran, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Tommy Collins. Michael Landry.
Here.
Tommy Landry. Lloyd Brown.
Here.
Warren Johnson.
Here.
Natalie Broussard.
Here.
Paul Landry.
Here.
Ricky Gosselin.
Here.
Joe Duda.
Here.
Eugene Olivier.
Here.
Brian Napier.
Here.
Vernon Francis. Marty Trahan.
Here.
Chad Montreal.
I did hear from Mr. Francis today, and he was feeling under the weather and was not going to be able to make it. Move on to public comments. I need a motion to go into public comments.
Move.
I have a motion by Mr. Goshasan, and a second by Mr. Pollard. You will need to say it out loud when you press as well, if you don't mind, to go into public comments. Roll call. Do they need to vote again?
Go ahead and vote.
Everybody can vote again.
We're still missing.
No. That motion carries unanimously. And just for the public, for the ones that aren't aware, our new voting system got installed today. And is my mic on? Okay. Our new voting system got installed today. We came early for training, but just bear with us as we get adjusted to the new system, and hopefully we'll get used to it and move along rapidly. First, we'll go to Ms. Monique Boulay with the Acadiana Planning Commission to address the council in order to invite the council to a regional watershed summit on August 3rd, 2017.
Hi, my name is Monique Boulay. Let me introduce myself and the Acadiana Planning Commission. Many of you are new, or at least to the Acadiana Planning Commission. Some of you I've worked with in the past. The Acadiana Planning Commission was formed in 2015 by the parish presidents of Acadia, Evangeline, Iberia, Lafayette, St. Martin, St. Landry, and Vermilion parishes. Today, we meet quarterly. Mr. Richard is very engaged and participates at a high level. Thank you very much. Mr. Saunier also participates in a lot of what we do. One of the first things we did after forming in February of 2015 was in July we moved the MPO into the regional seat out of the city of Lafayette, which many of you were a part of that decision. And so we do a lot of transportation planning at a regional level. We also do some economic development training. After the floods in August last year, we work a lot with the federal agencies, trying to be the middleman and connect them to with the state, and also work with the state down to the local. So we kind of serve, it's a regional capacity in the middle there. But EDA brought us into the very early recovery conversations after the flood. Most of you were very hands-on in those days, dealing with the response, the immediate response, and the immediate impacts. And the conversations we started having early on were what's going to come out of this. You know, the Baton Rouge area was hit enormously different than we were hit. They were really catastrophic, and today still don't have basic services in some areas. We were hit, not as hard, but we were hit hard enough to say, you know what, we've got to do this different. And we could really carry the watershed message in a way that they weren't ready to carry. They, I think, have carried the housing message in this whole disaster. And so EDA started engaging me and some of my staff. They started bringing us to a lot of the tables. The FEMA office in Baton Rouge has a big, large room, and in that room you have tables with EPA and EDA and USDA and all of the different federal agencies, and they kind of triage the issues and, well, who can do what, because they all have different pots of money. And so those conversations started early. And FEMA was one of the coordinating agencies in this, their recovery unit. They have lots of different pieces to FEMA. And they looked at the March disaster. We had floods in North Louisiana, and the August floods we had here and in Baton Rouge, and they combined that into one event. And then they looked at that and identified 22 watersheds that had been impacted. And when I say a watershed, you all are involved, I'm guessing, in 2 watersheds, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. The Vermilion, or 3. The Vermilion, the Teche, and maybe did somebody say 3? And they identified 22 watersheds, and they decided they were going to do a complete analysis on that, because often we get data on parishes or municipalities, and the cliche we've all heard so many times since August is water does not know political boundaries, and it doesn't. And so the data, to have it at a watershed level, really changes the conversation, because you can look at it in a different way. And so they did a complete analysis on all 22 of these watersheds. Then they looked at it, and interestingly enough, the Vermilion watershed, which starts in St. Landry Parish, and it's kind of a pyramid, goes all the way down to St. Mary and Vermilion, it touches 6 parishes, had the highest economic activity impacted. The Amite Basin by far had the greatest impact. I don't remember the number, but on the chart it was like this, and then Vermilion was here in Ouachita in North Louisiana. We were at about 300 million each, and then all of the other watersheds hit about 300 million total. So what was happening different in Acadiana was that our parish leaders, Joel Robideau and Larry Richard and Guy Cormier and Bill Fontenot, and then you've got Ronald Darby in Vermilion and Ryan Ordway in Evangeline and David Savoy in Acadia, we're talking. And we're saying, we got to think about this different. And Guy Cormier started those meetings early on, pulling people from the entire region together. And those meetings evolved into a really strong conversation. Well, the state took note of that, because it's not happening anywhere else. The collaboration is not happening, because they really want to solve this from a bigger picture. How can we actually lower those flood levels? How can we get it? We can't eliminate an event like August. We can't stop that. That was crazy. It's like somebody turned a faucet on and just didn't turn it off. But can we lower it a few feet? And when you do that, you reduce the impact. Will somebody have 1 inch instead of 3 feet? Well, then that's a whole nother ballgame in a recovery stage. So I think that's the overall objective. How do we reduce the impacts? And how do we look at this watershed? And it's not just the Vermilion or the Teche. It's the Vermilion, the Teche, the Marmontel, and it goes all the way up to the side of the Chaffly Basin. And how do we look at all of that as a whole? So the Acadiana Planning Commission is really taking that stick and trying to work with the Corps, GOSEP, FEMA, all of the federal and state agencies that have this. We're trying to keep them in this conversation. They are excited and engaged. They chose the Vermilion watershed to pilot the entire study. So on Thursday, the 3rd, not tomorrow, but next week, the governor's coming in to announce this entire statewide study that they've done. And from 1:30 to 4:30, the event will have a statewide perspective. The topics that have kind of risen to the top are flood insurance, land use and ordinances, the economic impact, and then we're going to have a panel in the evening at 5:30, and we scheduled this part at 5:30 really to try to make it possible for our councils, our juries, our drainage boards, our levee boards to come and engage in this conversation. But they're going to go specific into the Vermilion watershed at 5:30 and present a lot of the data. And there will be opportunity for questions and for a visioning. How do we move forward as a region? How do we all come together in this conversation? And how do we do it different? And And this is just the start. I think it's going to be a great event, but the next day, where are we? How do we come together? One of the ideas is, we pull a technical committee together where every jurisdiction sends their engineer or, their expertise in this, and we start putting those brains together to start making these decisions from a bigger perspective. Some people say we need to look up, in Alexandria, how the water was diverted out of the basin or into the basin. And, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of technical questions. So we're hoping this is the start of working together and trying to do things different. I'd like to invite you all, if you can't come for the entire event because it's going to go till about 8:30 at night. But that time from 5:30 to 8:30 is really targeted specific to the Vermilion, and it's done on a Thursday night because there's no council meetings on Thursday nights, and it's done at night because a lot of you work. So we really did want to make it available to you. If you can come for the whole event, it's going to be a great event. I think we're going to have a lot of people. There's some people from the New Orleans area who really have dealt with codes differently and with flood insurance, and they're going to bring, they've been working this issue hard since Katrina, and so we're trying to bring in some of their knowledge and just start our own regional conversation. So that's it, unless you have any questions.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Mr. Scott Berenger, President of the Iberia Sports Complex Commission, to provide information about the complex and its activities. While he's walking up, I just want to remind anybody, we didn't have our sign up on the screens earlier, but if you plan on speaking about something on the agenda, you do need to fill out a speaker participation form prior to speaking, so you can get one and fill it out. I'd appreciate it. Scott?
All right, thank you. First, I want to start off by saying thank you to the parish for everything you do for us out at the Pepperplex. Your support means a lot to us, and we probably couldn't function with a lot of that, so I really appreciate that and everything you do for us. I also apologize. I think it's been 3 years since I've been here and given you guys an update, so that's a shame on me. I'll try and do a little better in the future. As you know, our core partners with the Pepperplex are various soccer association and Evangeline Little League. And without those volunteers, we just simply, we'd also be in the bind. We get a lot of support from them. Iberia Soccer takes care of all the soccer fields, maintenance, cutting grass, running the league, and provide a lot of support to me and to the Pepperplex in general on other issues. Same with Evangeline Little League. In fact, they've really kind of stepped up in the last year and done some good things and got a good group going over there too. So those two leagues really are what make us successful out there. Some of the other activities that go on out of the Pepperplex right now, we host the junior high and elementary school girls softball league that runs from February through the end of March. We had 14 teams this year, so that's a very successful league. We also hosted the girls Catholic High girls softball blowout tournament. I think they had 8 or 9 high school teams. We hosted the Little League boys 8-year-old all-star district, Little League girls 12-year-old all-star state tournament, and then of course we always our parking lots used for the Sugarcane Festival Carnival. I'm not sure if that's happening this year. I haven't really heard, but we're open to them coming if they did want to come. Some things we also have going on, we've been having some discussions with Iberia Recreation Department about how we can work better with them on some projects and leagues and maybe some money and all those good things. So we're progressing along with that with Katie, and hopefully we'll make some progress there soon. As far as projects, what we've been doing out at the Pepperplex has been going on for us. As some of you may or may not know, we had a pretty major capital outlay fund project that was ready to be started, and the governor withheld our funds last August, so we were unable to proceed with that project. Hopefully someday we'll be able to have those funds released and proceed on. The plan there was to build a new pavilion for our back fields for the parents to kind of get out of the sun, have a safe place to get out of the rain and storms, and add some additional fencing, do some sidewalks, put a wash down area, But it was about $100,000 worth of work, so unfortunately that work has been delayed. Our biggest project I think we've had is thanks to Larry Richard and the parish. They helped us put in a new parking lot along the south side of our soccer fields that really improved the access to the soccer fields, and particularly for some of the elderly and the handicapped, where it's really a pretty long trek to get to some of those fields from the older parking lot. They can now almost pull right up to the edge of the fields, and that's been a real blessing, and we've received a lot of compliments for that. So I appreciate the parish and the state with the recycled asphalt making that happen for us. It was a big plus. The city this year also provided some support along that same area where we put the parking lot. We had a lot of drainage issues. We had some culverts and some catch basins that had washed out pretty bad. It was actually becoming a severe safety problem, particularly with the new parking lot and people passing through that area. So the city came out there and reworked all those catch basins and created a little more safer passageway through there. So we appreciate that help too. Some of you may recall back in August of 2014, the parish gave us a grant for $70,000, and kind of want to just hit the highlights of maybe some of the projects we did and improvements we made to the Pepperplex that those funds went towards. The first priority was to add some additional sidewalks. We spent about $11,000 doing that. We provided a new sidewalk from the parking to our U8 to U4 fields, and we finished the infamous sidewalk to nowhere, which was from the baseball pavilion out to the parking lot. So that was a big plus for, again, for handicap and for elderly, and just, in the mud and the muck, be able to get around the park a little easier. We spent $14,000 resurfacing 8 soccer fields. Again, the U8 through U4 age group fields were in bad shape. We had drainage issues. We had some safety issues with the playing surfaces, so we made some improvements there. We spent $15,000 on improving the drainage and surfaces for 3 of the baseball fields. Again, we had some safety issues there and a lot of drainage issues. And some of this is just the nature of things, right? Dirt washes away, it wears out. So it was just an age factor that led us to have to make those improvements. We also resurfaced our largest soccer field where we play a lot of high school games. And that was another $5,000 went towards that. And coincidentally, ISA paid for part of that, also contributed towards that project, not only with funds, but with volunteer labor. We replaced the restroom floor. We have an old restroom building in the back that actually we built when we were back in the Lounge and Little League. We hauled it over there. The floor was becoming an issue, had some holes, and it was going to be a bad deal. So we had a volunteer come forward and offer to do all the labor. He put new flooring, new wood floor, new ceramic tile in there. It really looks nice. And if we have any water leaks in there, with the ceramic, it's going to drain off a lot easier. We shouldn't hold any water. We did pay for the materials for that. That was $2,000. Concession stand, air conditioner goes out on us. That was $3,000. We blew a transformer at the concession stand. That was $4,000. Mower and equipment repairs and maintenance, $12,000. Irrigation repairs. Some of that was coincidentally caused by the resurfacing we did. We had to go back and make some modifications to our irrigation system, $2,000. And then we had to do some repairs on our field lights. Normally, if we have bulbs burn out, we purchase the bulbs. Cleco generously comes out and replaces the bulbs for us at no charge. But when they came out last time, we had some burnt ballast. So we had to get electrical contractor, EP Bro, came out and helped us out with that. As far as current funds, we just did get our check in for the Act 17 hotel motel tax funds. That check was for $16,295. Originally we were scheduled for $18,400, but the state decided to take a little bit of bite out of that for us, so we had to share that a little bit. So that gives us our current funds. With our general account, we have $17,200. So you can see we only had about $1,000 left when that state check come in, so it was good timing. We have $10,380 in our concessions account, and we got about $2,000 in cash on hand, undeposited funds we kind of use for petty cash and emergency repairs and those type of things. There's always a toilet to fix or belt for a lawnmower or something going on out there on the, I call it the Pepperplex Daily Fix or Repair. So we always have something going on there. And I guess last but not least, we would like to kind of encourage the council and all of New Iberia to encourage our local citizens to, play local. We're getting a lot of pressure, a lot of competition anymore these days from, Erath, Youngsville, Broussard. So we want to keep those players locally because they feed into our schools, they feed into all of our programs. Of course, it helps our park, helps the competitive nature of our park. So we'd like for you guys to help us in getting that word out and supporting us to get our residents to play local.
Thank you so much, Scott.
All
And
right.
what y'all do out there is amazing, and with the volunteers, we thank all of y'all. And I do encourage everyone to play local and support our local extracurricular activities here. So thank y'all for what y'all do.
All right. Any questions?
Mr. Landry?
New system. Scott, I want to also thank you and Jonathan and Julie, because I go out there and see how much time y'all put in out there, and, for no compensation, just doing it for the kids. Y'all really do a good job. We appreciate everything.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Moving to comments from the general public on agenda items, persons being considered for appointment to the parish boards or commissions to address the council. Remind everyone to please keep their comments limited to 3 minutes. I have a request from Carol Broussard.
Good evening. First, I'd like to extend my thanks to the council for giving me the opportunity to apply for the seat on the Acadiana Area Human Service District Board representing Iberia Parish. I feel my experience working for Office of Public Health for 37 years gives me an understanding of the needs and challenges faced by each population served in this district. I worked as a nurse at Iberia Parish Health Unit for 21 years. I left there as nursing supervisor and went on to the Region 4 Office of Public Health, still with Public Health in Emergency Preparedness. There I worked for 16 more years and just retired about a week and a half ago. I served that 7-parish region. There were 7 parishes in Acadiana region that I served, and I know y'all are aware of all the 7 parishes in Region 4. I worked with many agencies, private and public, whose clients receive these services. Some examples of relationships I formed are with agencies such as United Way, Catholic Charities, American Red Cross, hospitals, medical providers, law enforcement, to name a few. I became very familiar with the district, with the AAHSD, shorten it for y'all, executive director, and also the administration of each agency represented in this district. Because of this, I have gained a very cross-discipline knowledge of all the agencies comprised in the district. I work closely with all the 3 other agencies under the umbrella under the district, which is OBH, Office Behavioral Health, that provides mental health services, OAD, Office Addicted Disorder, and OCDD, Offices of Citizens with Developmental Disabilities. I've trained with them, I've given them trainings, I attended meetings with them. Since I am now retired, I would like to give back to the community, and I feel certain I can dedicate 100% of my time to this position. I would like to ensure that Iberia Parish obtains or receives the funds and resources due to them. Thank you for your time, and hopefully you will consider me for this position on the Acadiana Area Human Service District representing our parish.
Thank you, Ms. Broussard. Next, we have Mr. Kenny Patton.
Good evening. I am also applying for the seat on the Acadiana Area Human Services District Board. I am Kenny Patton. I am the CEO of the Arc of Acadiana. We provide services primarily in Iberia Parish, but throughout Acadiana and also in Bossier Parish. I've been the CEO I've been with the Arc of Acadiana for 42 years now. I have extensive experience in people with developmental disabilities. Our company has about 750 employees, and we serve approximately 750 clients throughout the state. Most of our services are in Iberia Parish. That's where we originated. We employ about 400 people in Iberia Parish and serving about 300 people here. I've had extensive experience with Region 4 District over the years. I feel like our input for our community services would be well received there. I thank you for your time tonight and hope you would consider me for that position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Next, we have Mr. Terry LeBlanc.
Yes, my name is Terry LeBlanc, and I'm reapplying for District 3 Coteau Water System for the Board of Directors. I've been on the board for probably about 15 years, and I'd like to continue serving.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. I was about to tell you wait for the train to finish, but I think we're good.
She said.
All right. Not having any other requests for comments for agenda items, I will entertain a motion to close public comments. Do I have a motion? You have to verbalize it, and you can't press the button until I call for the motion. So I have a motion by Mr. Gonsalin, a second by Mr. Gachassin. Can we have a roll call? You can't start voting until I call either, because she has to record them. There's one vote pending. Whose lights? There we go. Motion carries unanimously.
And your mic cut off.
My mic cuts off?
It did, yeah. It's on.
Okay.
It's on.
We're gonna have to work on how to keep my mic on at all times. Okay. Next, we'll go to reports for the finance and administrative actions, balance sheets for May and June of 2017 on request or in your packet. Budget reports for May and June of 2017. We've received those as well. If you didn't get those, you can request it. The bid tabulations for the 2017 bridge replacements, Back Road, Briarwood, Bull Island, and Railroad. Everyone should have received that as well. If you didn't, make sure to request that. Reports from parish or other governmental agencies, the building permit report for the month of June 2017, that was in our packets. The Public Works reports, Public Works Department report for closed work orders dated July 3rd through the 7th and the 10th through the 14th, 2017. And Public Works Department report for open work orders dated July 20th, 2017. We've all received those. Special business, there's none. Council member announcements, is there any council member announcements? Mr. Olivier?
Yes. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite everyone to the Grand Matter Community Development 9th Annual Town Hall Meeting, August the 3rd, 2017, at 6:30 p.m. at Monamin Grand Marais. This year's guest speaker is Michelle Alatu, Deputy Secretary of the Louisiana Department of Health, and the public is invited. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olivier. Mr. Gonsalin?
And a couple of announcements. First off, I'll start by saying that tomorrow starting around 10:30. The Council with Aging, Mr. Carol Whip, would be doing hot dogs for seniors in the city park. You're all aware of the program. Ms. Whip comes up several times to address the council. So they'll be serving hot dogs for seniors. We have donated a bunch of ground meat in funds so we can provide several hundred hot dogs for the seniors in Iberia Parish. So if you could come out and show your support and just visit, that would be great. Secondly, just want to offer congratulations to the Iberia Parish school system, teachers, parents, faculty for the increased score on LEAP test. I think that it shows a drastic improvement in our school systems, and it shows that a community that's united has a strong school system. So congratulations to all the people employed by the school and the students to keep working hard. We have a long road to go, but we're showing drastic improvements. Also, in the last week, the Louisiana Coalition has mailed out several flyers to council members and the general public referencing the oil lawsuit against the oil field companies. And I just want to reassure the general public that the council did pass a resolution not supporting suing our oil companies. They are our employers. They're some of our bread and butter in the parish, and we will not, and we voted to not support any lawsuits by John Bell or any administration to forego against any of our oil field companies. So with that being said, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonsalas. Mr. Pollard?
Yes, I'd like to thank Mr. Richard for coming out yesterday to the West End Community Center and speaking to for the summer camp program that day over there. And very, very excited kids was asking questions and going on, and you wouldn't think that that age of kids would have the decency of asking them kind of questions, and he answered everything and did a really good job. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. Next, moving on to parish president announcements.
Go on, Natalie. Okay, last Wednesday, of course, I held the State of the Parish, which some of you attended, and I appreciate all of you attending. It was a huge success. On August the 5th, Iberia Parish will begin a new recycling program. Based on the less than 10% participation, a change in the pickup process is needed. You will no longer have to wait to recycle articles or have them picked up. Iberia Parish government will be placing large recyclable bins for Iberia Parish residents to drop off their recyclables 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The areas where the bins will be located is Sugarina, Ranella, Ward 8 Recreation Center, Sewer District in Lauraville, that's 103 Booty Road, and also at the Delcombe Boat Landing. At each location, residents will find a recyclable bin which is designated to accept only those deemed recyclables, which is paper, plastic, glass, aluminum cans, small metal cans, for example, like your little soup cans and your Coke cans. Information for residents that currently have recyclable carts and what to do with those carts will be provided in the near future. And if you have any questions about the recyclable program, just contact Public Works, and that number is 364-8474. Thank you.
Mr. Richard, so there will no longer be curbside pickup beginning on August 5th?
August 5th,
is that
right.
correct?
Right. Basically, the recyclable containers are at location now. We just decided to make another run in case people don't get this message right now. But effective August the 5th, it's done. It's over. And most of you know that we're spending over $300,000 for this program, and we only have about 8% participation. Okay, thank you.
Does that conclude your announcements?
That is it.
All right, I have a couple of council members that want to address you, I believe, Mr. Richard, so I'm going to leave your mic on and go back. Mr. Gonsalas, you have the floor.
Mr. Richard,
I'm sorry. Go ahead,
no,
sir.
on the recycling program, are we planning to do a press release in the Daily
Yes.
Iberian or the website to inform the people?
Right, that's going to come. I'm just doing this to you first. The press
Okay.
release is going to actually come out later. And I do want to bring one other thing up, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Our royalty check came in, and we're actually looking a little bit better
Woohoo.
than we thought. If it continued like this here, we're going to receive more money in royalty than we budgeted last year, which is a good sign.
That's some very
And
good
another
news.
thing I want to pass on, in the package that you received, the tabulations for the bridge replacement program, that came in on the budget.
Yes.
So things are looking a little bit better. but
How
not
much
that
was
much.
that?
$83,000.
$83,000.
$83,400.
Mr. Trahan?
Yes, in Rhinello, is it gonna be at the Public Works barn,
Recycle?
Yes.
At Ranella Ballpark.
Ranella
Yeah.
Ballpark? Okay, thank you.
I'm so sorry. I didn't say ballpark. I'm so sorry.
All right, that's all the questions. Mr. Reshort, thank you for your announcements. Moving on to consent agenda items for public hearing and adoption. We have a couple of items under the consent agenda. We need to remove the approval of the minutes out of the consent agenda so we can make a modification to that. Otherwise, we have the change order for the waterworks system in the amount of $41,000. The change order for the water line relocation, $23,000. The substantial completion on Universal Parkway, and authorizing the parish president to enter into the cooperative endeavor agreement with the Iberia Parish Economic Authority for the quick take expropriation. Is there any items other than the approval of the minutes that any council member wants to remove from the consent agenda item? Mr. Goshasan?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to remove summary number 136 from consent agenda, please.
All right, so summary number 136 and the approval of the minutes have been removed from the consent agenda item. Mr. Gonsalves?
I just seconded it.
I need a motion for the consent agenda
I made a motion.
to approve all of the remaining items on the consent agenda
I thought
item.
Warren had made a motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Gonsalves, a second by Mr. Paul Landry. I need roll call. Oh, I didn't vote. I'm trying to press too many buttons. That motion carried unanimously.
Mike.
So we'll go back to the approval of the minutes, and I'm going to turn it over to the clerk to discuss one of the changes that needs to be made.
On Resolution 2017-105, which appointed Ms. Melissa Landry to the Library Board, we made an error and showed Mr. Brown, Lloyd Brown, voting for Ms. Blanton and Ms. Landry. So we're just correcting it with his correct vote that he voted for Ms. Blanton.
All right, so I need a motion to make that correction of the minutes. I have a motion by Mr. Paul Landry, a second by Mr. Ricky Gonsalves. Any discussion, Mr. Landry? You have the floor. No, no discussion. Then at this time, I'm going to call for a vote on the amendment to the minutes. That motion carries unanimously. Moving on to summary number 136, introduced by Waterworks District number 3, Mr. Gonsalves?
You took a motion on the amendment. Did you take a motion on the total consent agenda items yet?
Yes.
Okay.
We had.
Okay.
Mr. Macharan, you have the floor. You had a question before we move to the next item?
No.
All right, summary number 136, introduced by Waterworks District number 3, a resolution authorizing change order number 1 in the amount of $23,416 for the water line relocation for Bull Island Road over Bayou Park, Purdue. All is recommended by project engineer Dubrock Engineering, Inc. I need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Trahan, second by Mr. Macharan. Mr. Trahan, you have the floor.
I'd like to make a motion to delete this item. Yeah, and let it come back up later.
So you're making a substitute motion to
Yes.
delete?
Yeah, substitute to delete.
Before I accept that motion, I'm going to finish the discussion, and I'm going to, Mr. Macharan, your motion is to move to, okay, so Mr. Goshasan?
Yeah, I just maybe if the administration can explain the 23,416 on the water line. Didn't we approve money for this previously or no?
No, from what, good on, from what I'm looking at, it appears that they're asking to remove water from, to do a change order for $23,000 from Bull Island Bridge, which is money that was actually allocated through a bond. To
bridge bonds?
Through the bonds for the bridge, and and to use it at, wasn't this supposed to be used at Melanson Road? Where's Chad? And that's two different types of projects. Melanson Road wasn't named in the bond, so you can't do that.
So Melanson Road wasn't in the project, so the 23,416 is needed to do this project?
Where's Jody? Swear. He was just here. My understanding, I can't answer for him, Warren, I don't know. You might want to talk to the councilman that he spoke to. But we can't use the money from the bond money to do that particular project. It wasn't named in the bond.
Okay. I mean, it didn't say where it was, I didn't see, it just said change order, so it is requesting it from the bond money?
That's what it sounds like they're doing it.
It didn't say it on here, though, I was just questioning, okay.
Mr. Traha?
You can only use change order money for a project where you had money allocated for that project.
The money, it wasn't listed in the bond, Melanson Road. It was done through another fund.
It was done by Paris Public
And they wanted to
Works.
use what was left over from the Bull Island roads on there, which you cannot use. So we talked to Jody to make a motion to delete, and they'll figure out something and come back to us at a later date.
Warren, that's not a change order. What they're requesting is really not a change order, because the money that they're trying to get was on a totally different project. Typically, when you're doing a change order, is if you have X amount of money allocated to a project and you need to do something else on that project, that's a change order. But what they're asking to do is, at Melanson Road, use some money that was actually allocated for a totally different project. So that wouldn't be considered a change order.
Okay.
Mr. Gonsalves?
Larry, the 23,416 is excess fund on the Bull Island Road, correct?
We have that much
So,
money.
so in my opinion, that money has to be returned back to fund balance of the bonds
There
and
you
then
go.
reallocated through this council through another
There you
agenda
go.
item.
There you go.
Okay.
That's right.
That's what I think.
All right, so, Mr. Trahan, I'll accept your motion to delete at this time, and Mr. Macharan's second, and I need to pause. All right, roll call. That motion carries unanimously.
Who's the leader?
Summary number 137, introduced by, that's still in the consent agenda items. All right. Ordinances introduced for public hearing and adoption. There are none. Resolutions introduced for public hearing and adoption. Summary number 107, introduced by the clerk of the council, a resolution appointing one member to the Waterworks District Number 3 Board for a 5-year term to fill a vacancy created by the expiration of a term for Mr. Terry LeBlanc, whose term expires August 5th, 2017. Appointment applications received from Terry LeBlanc. The deadline for these applications was today at 4:30. Are y'all aware of receiving any other applications by 4:30 today?
No.
Okay. So the only application we have on file is Mr. Terry LeBlanc. I need a motion. Moved by Mr. Macharan, second by Mr. Goshasan. Any discussion? All right. Roll call. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. We appreciate all your, did he leave? Okay. We appreciate all your years of service regardless, and thank you for being willing to continue to serve. Summary number 130, introduced by the Clerk of the Council, a resolution appointing one member of the Acadiana Area Human Service District 4, representing Iberia Parish for the remainder of a term to fill a vacancy created by the expiration of term for Ms. Dorla Louvier, whose term expires April 22nd, 2017. Appointment applications received from Carol Broussard and Kenny Patton. Madam Clerk, again, this deadline was at 4:30 today. For any other applications, or you're aware of any other?
No.
Okay. So if everybody could vote, make sure you vote on your district ballot. District 1, Broussard. District 2, Broussard. District 3, Broussard. District 4, Broussard. District 5, Broussard. District 6, Broussard. District 7, Broussard. District 8, Broussard. District 9, Broussard. District 10, Broussard. District 11, Broussard. District 13, Patton. District 14, Patton. By a vote of 11 to 2. Ms. Broussard has it. Thank you, Mr. Patton, for being willing to serve, and Ms. Broussard, thank you as well. We look forward to you serving on that board. Summary number 139, introduced by the parish president, a resolution amending the 2017 Public Buildings Maintenance Fund budget in the approximate amount of $420,000 for the purchase of property located at 4108 Spanish Trail, formerly the Dutch Gosnell Manufacturing and Supply, Inc. property, all to be funded from the fund balance previous years, and further ratifying an agreement to buy and sell immovable property to be executed by Iberia Parish President Larry Richard. I have a motion by Mr. Dugas, a second by Mr. Napier. Any discussion? We'll move to Mr. Dugas for discussion.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a substitute motion that we make this, the buy-sell agreement contingent upon an environmental impact study. I'm not so concerned about surface contamination, but I know there was a lot of oil, motor oils, and hydraulics, and just to be unsafe, I want to make sure that they didn't dump in a hole somewhere there a lot of used motor oil or hydraulic oil. So my substitute motion would be to make the buy-sell agreement contingent on an environmental impact study.
And is that okay with the second, or do I need to open the floor for a second?
That's fine with me.
All right. Mr. Dugas, you finished the floor. We'll move on to discussion.
Yes.
Mr. Napier, you have the floor next.
Yeah. I went with a few other ones yesterday, and we went and looked at that building, and I just want to state that this is, in my opinion, a very good buy for the parish, for the taxpayers. This building is huge. Surely they need some work, but it is a good opportunity to get Public Works from the flood zone that they're in now on Avery Island Road, bring it to a high part of the parish, in the middle of the parish. The options are just enormous for what the administration can do with that building. Not only Public Works, in the future there is possibilities, if the administration sees fit, to move other agencies there. In a disaster, it's a good staging area for law enforcement, for Public Works, for all of us. So I'm gonna support this. It's Mr. Richard, y'all have done a great job. The price is, in my opinion, good, and I'm gonna support this, and I hope everyone else does. Thank you.
Mr. Paul Landry?
I'm totally with you, Brian. I want to go with the building, the building, but I'm not going to support this substitute motion. It wasn't a facility that dumped a lot of oil and stuff like that and everything. I think it's time to get moving. I think we're good and fair. So personally, I'm just going to vote against this substitution, and then we'll go back to the original proposal.
You've finished? I'd just like to say that I went to tour the facility with Mr. Napier and several other council members yesterday. There were other council members that couldn't make it, that have seen the building. Just to give a little bit of history about Public Works, in 2015, there was a proposal to build a new administrative building as well as a Public Works building out at the airport on some property that we already own. The proposal was to build a 14,000 square foot building for Public Works, and the cost of that was about $3.7 million. Obviously, we have not been in a position to build that building yet. The building that we would be getting for $410,000 is approximately 40,000 square foot. So it's about 2/3 larger than what our proposal was at $3.7 million. It's on 7.5 acres of land. It's an enormous facility. It has lots of room where we can grow. We can move other departments there if we need to move departments there. There's plenty of room to do what we need to do. The elevation, the lowest spot is 18.5 feet above sea level, so it's high and dry. There's a lot of negative public perception out there about this purchase, and I think it's important for the public to understand why we're trying to do this. The general public, you got it, Mr. Lloyd. The general public may not be aware, but where our Public Works building now is in a flood zone. For one of the buildings out there alone, we spend $28,000 a year. That's annually, every year, for flood insurance, just for that building alone. Every time we have a storm come in, every time we have the threat of hurricane, our Public Works Department spends days removing all of our equipment from that area, getting it to higher ground, and then after the storm passes, days bringing everything back in. That's a cost to the taxpayers. That's not free. And that is taking up our labor, it's taking up our employees, and prevents us from helping the community prepare for the storm. The amount of money that we'll be saving pays for this new building in it by itself alone. The building is centrally located, so it's going to cut down on our cost of our Public Works Department every day that they go out to work. We're going to have a better response time. We'll have office space. We'll have a secured tool room, so our items won't be borrowed with no intention of being returned. We can have some designated area just for prepared sandbags. It has 7 overhead cranes. It has the large bays. All of our equipment can be stored indoors, under roof, protected from the elements. And you just heard Mr. Richard announce that we're going to be moving to a location spots for our recycle program, which is no longer curbside. This has plenty of room to be another recycle location as well. So I just want the public to realize that money may be tight in many, many areas. I mean, we're always screaming about we don't have any money, we don't have any money, we don't have any money, and that is true. But there's a difference between dedicated funds and non-dedicated funds, and the money that we're using to purchase this building, or would be using if this passes, it comes from a dedicated fund, that there is money in there. Kim, if I'm not wrong, there's about $4 million in that fund. So it would not be putting a big hit on this fund balance. And I just don't understand the idea of not spending money on a building that will help us save money and will help the services that we can provide to our community, just because money in non-dedicated sources are not there and we can't help in other ways. Where we have opportunities to do something good for our parish and move our parish forward, we need to take advantage of those opportunities. So I'm in full support of this, and I hope the council considers it, and I hope that helps the public to understand a little bit more of why we're buying a building at this time. There'll also be some talk about what we do with the public works facility that's existing, and surplusing it out and doing what needs to be done. But just tearing down the one building will save us $30,000 a year. So that's a big plus for our parish. So I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah, our chairman exceeded the 3-minute rule. I mean, we got to be consistent with all of us now. No, great discussion, Ally. I think you hit on all the high points. But I think, there's not too many opportunities as an elected official that you get to spend money and ultimately get a net asset return to the taxpayers, because in my opinion, this building will appraise for more than what we're going to purchase for. So it's going to be a net gain to the taxpayers, and it's an asset that it can be flipped or turned around if it ever need to be. So I think it's a great investment. And I think, as an elected official, you strive to try to provide services to your constituent in the most efficient manner as you can. This is an opportunity that we can become more efficient with public works and provide those services to our constituents in a timely manner. And I think it's a win-win. Any way you look at it. Now, there are some negatives associated with it, but that's when any decision and every decision, you are going to have some negative publicity and negative aspects to it. But I think, in general, this is a great move for Iberia Parish government.
And I'd like to add one thing if I can, Madam Chair.
Wait, I have to turn on your mic.
Okay.
Okay.
Earlier you mentioned the $3.7 million to purchase, or estimate to purchase the 14,000 square foot building. And we spending $410,000 to purchase this building. So you're already looking at a $3+ million cost avoidance. Now, we know that we're gonna have to put money into this, but let's just say we put $1 million into it and you had $1.4 million, you still have about a $2.3 million cost avoidance, which means we can actually take that money in the building fund to do other things. And so I think it's a great opportunity. So of course I'm for it. I brought it up.
Mr. Napier?
Before we vote, and I respect my friend Mr. Paul Landry in his assumption that we don't need to do an environmental impact, I would just like to, maybe the administration can help me out on that. Should we not do that? Oh, I see Andy grabbing for the mic if you wanna. I just, surely, I'm like Joe, I don't wanna go through all that and then later on down the line we find out maybe, cause does any of us know exactly day to day what was done with that building? I don't think there's anything, me personally, but shouldn't we cross our T's, dot our I's, make sure we on the right page? If anybody can help me out with that one. Thank you.
Mr. Shealy?
We did consider the wisdom of including a provision like that in the purchase and sales agreement when it was drafted. And we chose not to include such a provision for several reasons. Collectively, I think everyone involved was aware of the type of business activities that had been conducted there and aware of the size of the potential risk that might be involved. We also took that in consideration when we negotiated the purchase price, which, gentlemen and ladies, was far, far less than what was being asked for the property. We also took into consideration the unique characteristics of that property for the planned use of the property. And we determined that the risk was small in relation to the benefit that was going to be available to the parish to have a facility like this located where it was, with the overhead cranes, all the things that y'all have spoken about. And so we think that the issues related to, or your concerns, were addressed in the negotiation of the purchase price, which is, as I think everybody would agree, is probably far less than the building will actually appraise for.
You still have the floor, Mr. Napier.
So if I understand, we have, as legal, we have no concerns that it could come back later, Andy, and that's all I'm saying. I mean, you pretty comfortable that if we don't do it, we in good shape years down the line, that it won't come back to bite us?
I'm comfortable. Mr. Watney's job, as well as mine, is to try to limit the liability of the parish
Sure.
whenever possible, and we think that, all things considered, that the risk is small and the reward is great when you look at the building and what it can be used for.
Mr. Napier, you're finished?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Dugas?
Yeah, I just want to explain what I was thinking here. I came from an environment where if you spill a cup of oil on the ground, then you've got everybody running over there, and it's a big deal. When we audit our books, we bring in independent auditors. We don't tell the auditors, "Oh, we're good," and they walk away and we go on with our business. We get independent people in to look at these things. That's all I'm asking for. So you get an independent environmental guy comes in, he says, "You're good to go, then let's go." But we've covered our tails in that way. Thank you.
Mr. Tommy Landry?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment according to what Joe just said. Number one, I think it complicates the issue, throws a wrench in the sale process, and kind of puts everybody, I just think it's a bad idea to do this. I'm not going to support it, and I'd like to remind everybody else, a no vote is not against the sale. The no vote will be against the sub.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah. Also, the price of to build another building, I don't know if the land was included in that.
It is.
It was?
In this 410?
No, the land was not included in the
No,
proposal
that's
for
what
the
I'm
new
saying. So it
building.
would have been even more, is what I'm saying, to build one. That's our land.
Mr. Trahan?
What would be the cost of this study? Anybody know? I'm done.
Mr. Paul Landry?
What would be the timeline? I mean, would it maybe move it back 2-3 months or something like that,
Mr. Reshort, are you aware of how long it would take to do an environmental study, or?
I have no idea how long it would take, and I also have no idea what the cost would be. But perhaps maybe the appraisal, I don't know. So an environmentalist, but I don't know how much it would cost.
Mr. Napier?
I'm going to remove my my second to that. I'm good. I'm good after all the speaking.
Mr. Goshasan?
I'll reply to second to it, please.
All right, so we still have a substitute motion on the floor by Mr. Dugas with a second by Mr. Goshasan. Any further discussion on the substitute motion? All right, so I'll call for, before y'all vote, just 1 second, please. All right, I'll roll call on the substitute motion. All right, the substitute motion failed with Broussard, Goshasan, and Dugas voting in favor of it. So we will go back to the original motion. Any discussion on the original motion? Mr. Gonsalves?
Yes, I'd like to make a substitute motion that pending Iberia Parish government relocation to the facility in full, 100%, that we consider surplusing the current facility so that we don't acquire too many more properties as we move forward.
All right, so not necessarily pending, but after the
After,
move,
that's right,
that we consider surplusing the
That's right.
property.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a motion, a substitute motion by Mr. Gonsalas, second by Mr. Paul Landry. Mr. Gonsalas, any further discussion from you on your
ma'am.
substitute motion? Mr. Paul Landry, you have the floor.
Just second Ricky's motion. I think that's a good thing.
Any further discussion on the substitute motion? All right, so the motion that we're voting on now is to approve summary number 139 with the substitute, which would be that once the sale went through and Public Works actually moved into the new building, that the administration would consider surplusing the existing property that we have where Public Works is presently located. And I will call for vote on that motion. We're still waiting for 2 people to vote. 1? That motion ties 11-2 with Goshasan and Dugas voting against it. Moving on to summary number 140, introduced by Ricky Gonsalas, District 8, a resolution requesting and urging Governor John Bel Edwards and the Iberia Parish Legislature to restore funding for the Louisiana 3212 Turnaround Access Road project. I need a motion. Can y'all verbalize it when y'all press the button, please, still? I have a motion by Mr. Napier, a second by Mr. Tommy Landry. Any discussion? Mr. Napier, you have the floor.
Short and sweet. I support this resolution that we let the governor know how disappointed we were that funding was taken from us, and that we try our best, and hopefully our delegation is with us to get this back on ASAP. Thank you.
Mr. Tommy Landry?
I'm with you, same thing. I'm good. I don't know if it'll help, but
Mr. Gonsalas?
Yeah, I echo Brian's statement. I think we just need to send a message to Baton Rouge that we're very disappointed and that, we have a lot of time and effort into this project, and we're about to kick it off to benefit Iberia Parish in a huge way, and that we're unfortunate that things fell the way they fell, but we look forward to working with the state and our legislature to try to move this project forward.
Mr. Trahan?
Yes, I'd like to recognize the parish president, ma'am.
Mr. Richard?
Okay, just for council information, I'm trying to schedule a meeting right now with the governor to go and speak with the governor. In fact, we had meetings with our senator, for the most part, all of our delegation. And we expressed the concern that we have with them pulling the funding for this here. We need the project. We need this project, 3212, and the roundabout access road, for the development of the airport. As you know, we're trying to get more businesses here, and we have a real good plan. And without this particular this road, it's gonna hurt us really bad. So I'm looking forward to meeting with the governor. In fact, I spoke with Brian yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And Brian had spoken to Senator Ali, and we're working with Senator Mills and trying to get this meeting scheduled. Hopefully we can get it done next week, or whenever the governor is available, I'll be there. Okay.
Mr. Trahan? I'll call for roll call. Oh, time?
I have 2 possible suggestions that you might want to think about. In the 4th whereas paragraph, I might substitute the following language. Whereas the project known as the 5-lane access road is a proposed gateway to Acadiana Regional Airport from US Highway 90 and will provide a direct access to accommodate large truck turning radius and a time-saving route important to the transportation industry and spur economic growth at the airport and the proposed industrial park of the Iberia Economic Development Authority. It goes a little bit further into what the importance of this project is, just to add. Then in the fifth whereas, Iberia Parish government has at least committed a large sum of Iberia Parish government money toward this project. And it might, just a suggestion, you might want to consider mentioning how much local money is being invested in this particular project to show that there is a substantial local contribution toward the success of this project. Just two possibilities to think about.
It's my understanding that we have already spent over $600,000, and how much do we have in addition committed to the project?
We have probably around $1 million plus.
All right, so we've already spent over $600,000 and have an additional $1 million committed.
Oh, yeah, then you also have federal dollars, and that's right. I would actually have to get the spreadsheet. We have a lot of money involved in this here. Natalie, we probably have about 600,000 from.
We spent 607.
From PERC.
We have 2.1 from PERC.
1.5 million on the federal side. So we have a lot of money involved in this here. Probably a little bit over $2 million.
So,
but I want to pass one other thing on. The way this was done in the past is when the previous administration went to capital outlay, they request this money for construction only, and it made it extremely difficult for that project to work. All of the money that we spent so far have been like for design and engineering and land and things of that particular nature. What I'm doing with the capital outlay request that I'm doing in by November, I'm going to request for the money to be spent for construction, design, engineering, permitting. So as soon as we get the money, we can spend some money. The problem is, when it was actually allocated to Iberia Parish government, we couldn't spend any money because we still had property that needed to be acquired. And even if we would buy the property, we couldn't buy the property with those dollars. So when we get this here done, hopefully by August of next year, in talking to our delegation, we should have everything squared away, hopefully by August of next year. But as soon as we get the money in, we'll be able to spend. We'll be able to draw down, not necessarily spend, they call it a drawdown. And we should be okay.
Mr. Napier, it was your motion. Do you approve the requested changes that Mr. Shealy recommended? And is that okay with the second?
Absolutely, I agree with
All right, so the motion would be, the resolution would be modified to include the change that he had to the whereas number 4 and in the whereas number 5 to put in those figures of what we've already spent, what we have committed, and what we have committed from the feds to go in there. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
That's good.
Tommy, your machine's giving you some trouble? It keeps unregistering your vote. That motion passed 13, none, so that unanimous. Before we adjourn, I just want to let the council know that I am trying to schedule a special committee meeting, which would be either August 2nd or August 7th, which would give the opportunity for the levy board to come in and talk to us, as well as CPRA to come in and talk to us, so that we can get as much information that we can possibly get for ourselves and for our district to go back to our constituents before we have to make a decision on the levy board tax. So just for y'all to have a heads up that that may be coming next week or the following week. And it's just an educational, I think we all need to make sure that we have an opportunity to get all our questions answered. So now I need a motion to adjourn. I have a motion by Mr. Gosselin, a second by Mr. Goshasan. We'll take a 5-minute recess to go into committee meetings. They just trying to mess with me.
Bye, Kim.
We're in recess for 5 minutes.